Hi again. Uh, Welcome to the next story of the Weggie story series of the vital orbit section of my orbit cast. So the next person whose story I'm going to read is Ian. And here's Ian's story. My name is Ian, and I was born on December 30th, 1994. I did many things the average kid did. Go to school, play video games, hang out with friends, etc. I love to play tennis and still do to this day. And of course, I have a very loving family. Overall, I think my personal humor made me the person I am, being funny and optimistic all the time. I know you've heard several stories of adults having Wegeners, but I'm going to give you a different perspective, one of a 16-year-old boy. In the summer of 2011, I started getting skin lesions, fatigue, frequent nosebleeds, and headaches. Mostly concerned with the skin lesions, since I thought the fatigue was from tennis, I went to see a dermatologist. They said I probably had a mild case of eczema, saying it will just go away, and if I didn't continue to itch it and use some cream they supplied me with. Feeling better, the days passed on until late August, when my junior year of high school began. Around that time, I started feeling some severe chest pain, getting worse by the day. At first, I thought it was just a pulled chest muscle from playing tennis too much, though eventually it was to the point where every time I inhaled, I basically curled up on the floor in pain. On September 4th, Saturday night, I went to a clinic complaining about the chest pain. They took an x-ray and came back with some bad news. I had 2 unknown masses in my upper left chest, right below my collarbone. Being rushed over to my community hospital that same night, a CT scan was done, coming out with no new results. Fearing that I had cancer, I was sent to Children's Memorial Hospital in Chicago, about an hour away from where I lived. Arriving there at about 1 in the morning, I got to my bed and fell asleep. After a couple of days passed, of blood results revealing higher level of some liver enzyme and so forth, a lung biopsy was called for to see what these masses were. Having agreed to do the biopsy, I was put out by the anesthesiologist. I woke feeling groggy and wondering what would come of the results. A day or two passed, and in came my doctor with some news. Apparently, I have this disease called Wegener's granulomatosis. The doctor told me that he's never seen the disease in someone as young as I am. We both know it's a rare disease, and even rarer amongst adolescents, and suggested that I should play the lottery when I am of age. This was confirmed by the ENT specialist, who also did a biopsy of my throat and mouth, seeing as I had gained some rather painful sores to the point of my only intake of food was chocolate milkshakes. Days passed, and now they are wanting a liver biopsy, since it's about twice the size it should be. But instead of going directly over the liver for a biopsy, they needed to go through my inferior vena cava, the jugular, for the biopsy, since a direct biopsy would be extremely risky. My parents and I said no, since we didn't like the idea of a needle to retrieve a liver sample go down my neck and through my body like a snake crawling through the African plains. So they started me on the steroid prednisone, a chemotherapy called rituximab. I was told this was a newer type of chemo. Well, not exactly chemo, but close enough to call it that had a very small chance of me losing my hair. Once a week for 4 weeks to reduce my white B cells. Bactrim as an antibiotic, as well as calcium, vitamin D, and a nasal ointment called Bactroban. After being home for the first time in 12 days, I realized I've lost some weight as long as several things in school. The school work was pain. The fact being I was an honor courses and 2 AP classes. I ended up dropping an AP class and getting some tutoring, while immediately returning back to school half day almost every day to not fall even more behind than I already was. But being back in class made me feel normal again, even though some students thought I had moved, transferred schools, or died somehow. Besides that, there was the chemotherapy-induced 2 doses of Solumentrol, another steroid I'm pretty sure, once a week. I was on 30 milligrams of prednisone a day, along with other medicine I've already listed. But wait, my liver and spleen are still enormous, which is why I eventually did get the liver biopsy after my liver and spleen weren't really returning back to their normal state. But this time they could do a direct biopsy since it was a little better than before. Again, I tried to fight off the anesthesia, but eventually succumbed to sleep. Days later, when the results had come back, it turned out my liver ducts were scarred from the PSC liver disease. This is where I start taking a bile thinner called ursodiol for probably the rest of my life. A couple of weeks later, I went in for an MRCP scan to see what ducts were damaged. Luckily, they were mostly smaller ducts and not the larger ones. I also went in for an upper and lower endoscopy, but thankfully it revealed nothing abnormal. This was all about 5 months ago, but then came another trip back to the hospital. Over my winter break in December of 2011, I went back since I had a horrible cough. Another lung biopsy revealed that my granulomas on my chest were getting smaller and hollow, but also infected with some bacteria, as well as my lungs. This turned out to be pneumonia, and some antibiotics cleared that up. After 6 more days in hospital, being released a couple of days before Christmas, I was happy to be back out in the world again. So far, there hasn't been any flare-ups to my knowledge, and life has been pretty smooth. I definitely see things different now and hope the best for everyone with hardships. For those who are newly diagnosed with Wegener's, all I can say is the earlier they catch it, the better of a chance they have to fix it. Meaning, if they have these symptoms or anything peculiar at all, they shouldn't hesitate to contact their doctor for advice. Mostly, however, I'm extremely grateful for all the love and support I have received and still am to this day. From my family to my friends, doctors, nurses, and even teachers for being so helpful getting back to school. Without them, I'm sure I would have lost hope before I even began to climb this mountain of a disease. That's really hard to read about a kid because it's a hard disease to go through as an adult. I can't even imagine going through it as a kid. So, Ian, I hope you're doing well, buddy. I hope you're doing well. I hope that this is all just a gross memory of the past. And, yeah, good job navigating this shit. While I was reading this, I was thinking about how all the immune suppression that we're on, rituximab that he was on, is actually a biologic, which is B-cell ablation. So chemo gets rid of all fast reproducing cells, which is why your hair falls out, because it's a fast reproducing cell. And your white cells, T's and B's, are both quickly reproducing, fast reproducing cells, which is why chemo destroys them all. Whereas rituximab only destroys your B cells, which is your immune system's memory, and renders you into a newborn baby again. Not totally, but pretty close, as far as your immune system goes. And one of the big risks of doing these treatments is actually PCP pneumonia, which is a pneumonia that used to kill AIDS patients, because apparently a large percentage of the population carries the PCP pneumonia bacteria, but because our immune systems are strong enough, we can fight it. But as soon as your immune system is suppressed through the chemotherapy, which is cyclophosphamide, the B-cell ablation, biologics, and the steroids, the prednisone, all of these things suppress your immune system and open you up to opportunistic bacterial infections like PCP pneumonia, which is where the Bactrim comes in. The Bactrim is entirely intended to keep you from getting PCP pneumonia. I am personally allergic to Bactrim, so I was taking Dapsone And those are pretty much your only two choices that you can take with a pill. Otherwise, you have to go to the hospital and do, I can't remember what it's called, but you gotta, yeah, it's a procedure to get protection for PCP pneumonia. And it sounds like he got an opportunistic pneumonia and bacterial pneumonia from all the immune suppression. And I can see going back to school and being so severely immune compromised from your meds, that can definitely be an outcome. And Ian, you made me cry, Ian. But thank you so much for sharing your story. Appreciate it. And with all my heart, I hope that this is all behind you. And you're living an awesome life, playing tennis and having a blast. Take care, buddy. And thank you all for watching. See you on the next one.